All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about manufacturing on a scale that's, well, it's pretty hard to wrap your head around. We're creating these incredibly tall, thin structures out of silicon. Now, the goal is to build these silicon nanowires with absolute precision, but the challenge is that the whole process is ridiculously sensitive. You get one tiny thing wrong, and your perfect structure just turns into a useless mess. So today, we're going to break down how researchers managed to tame this wild, complex process. Just take a look at this. It kind of looks like a microscopic forest, doesn't it? And in a way, it is. These are silicon nanowires, and each one is thinner than a wavelength of light. But they're not just fascinating to look at. Oh no, they are the fundamental building blocks for some seriously powerful technology.
So you might be asking, why go to all this trouble? Well, it's because these structures have what's called a high aspect ratio. Fancy term, but all it means is they're really tall and skinny. And that specific shape is crucial for a ton of applications. We're talking more efficient solar cells, chemical sensors so sensitive they can sniff out tiny traces of molecules, devices that can turn waste heat back into electricity, and even materials that can help our own bones regrow. The potential is absolutely huge, which is why figuring out how to make them perfectly is such a big deal.
Okay, so how on earth do you sculpt something this small? You obviously can't use a tiny chisel. The technique is actually a beautiful piece of chemistry, a process that lets us carve silicon with incredible precision. It's called Metal-Assisted Chemical Etching, or MACE for short. And honestly, the name gives the whole game away. You use a metal to help a chemical etch or carve silicon. What's so brilliant about MACE is that it's a wet etching method, meaning it all happens in a simple chemical bath. It's low cost, and it's fantastic for creating those super tall, super thin structures we need.
So here's how it works. And this analogy is perfect. The little particles of noble metal, like silver or platinum, are your catalysts. Think of them as a team of microscopic miners. They land on the silicon surface, and once you put them in the chemical bath, they just start digging straight down. They create these long vertical tunnels, and the walls that are left standing between the tunnels, those are your nanowires. It's an amazing localized electrochemical reaction that just happens.
But of course, there's a catch. The idea might be simple, but actually doing it is like solving a puzzle. The final result is super sensitive to a few key variables. If you tweak any one of them, even just a little, you can get a completely different result.
These are the four main knobs you can turn in this experiment. First, what metal are you using? Silver, platinum, a mix. Second, how long do you let the reaction go? Third, what's the temperature of the bath? And fourth, how much hydrogen peroxide, the oxidizing agent, do you have in the mix? With 3 different settings for each of those 4 factors, the number of possible recipes just explodes.
And this is really the heart of the problem. If you wanted to test every single possible combination to find the perfect recipe, what scientists call a full factorial experiment, you'd have to run 81 separate tests. 81! I mean, that's a massive amount of time and money. There had to be a smarter way to do this. And thankfully, there was. Instead of just brute forcing the problem, the researchers turned to a really powerful statistical tool called the Taguchi method.
And this is just brilliant. The Taguchi method is designed to get you the most information from the fewest number of tests. It intelligently picked just 9 specific combinations of those 4 factors. So they went from 81 possible experiments all the way down to a much more manageable 9. It's a perfect example of working smarter, not harder.
So, with this incredibly efficient approach, the researchers could finally answer the most important question of all. Out of all those knobs they could turn, the metal, the time, the temperature, the oxidizer, which one mattered the most? Which factor had the single biggest influence on the final result?
And the answer, as this chart makes crystal clear, is not even close. This is called a main effects plot. Basically, the taller the bar, the more impact that factor has. And as you can see, the choice of noble metal is, by far, the most dramatic and influential factor in the entire process.
So we know what matters most, but now we need to understand why. What is it about the metal or the hydrogen peroxide that changes the outcome so drastically? This is where we get to the real aha moment in the science.
It all comes down to how the different metals physically behave on the silicon surface. Silver forms this open, branched, almost tree-like structure called a dendrite. This porous scaffolding is perfect because it lets the etching chemicals flow right through to the silicon. Platinum, on the other hand, forms a thick, dense blanket over the surface. It essentially acts as a barrier, blocking the chemicals and slowing the whole process way down.
And you can see that difference plain as day right here. On the left, that's the open, web-like structure of the silver dendrites. You can just imagine the chemical solution flowing right through that. Now look at the right. That's the dense, packed layer of platinum. It's basically a shield, and that's exactly why the etching is so much less effective with it.
Now let's look at the second most important factor, hydrogen peroxide. Its main job is to be an oxidizing agent, which just helps the reaction move along. But the metal also causes it to break down really fast into water and oxygen gas. In other words, it creates bubbles. At low levels, this can actually be helpful. It stirs the solution. But at high concentrations, you get some seriously vigorous bubbling.
And what do those bubbles do? Well, this slide shows the effect perfectly. On the left, you have a beautiful, uniform forest of nanowires, created with just a moderate amount of hydrogen peroxide. On the right, you see this chaotic, porous structure. That's what happens when you use too much. The violent gas bubbles literally blast holes into the silicon, disrupting that nice, orderly etching and creating a porous, messy structure.
What's also fascinating is how these different factors affect the speed of the etching. The researchers found that cranking up the temperature or the time increases the etching rate in a pretty straightforward linear way. Double the time, you roughly double the etching. But hydrogen peroxide is a whole different animal. Its effect is exponential. That means a small increase in its concentration can cause a huge jump in the reaction speed, which helps explain why things can get so out of control so fast.
Okay, so the statistical model gave them a clear hierarchy of what factors matter and why. But the final, most critical step in any science is validation. Did the predictions that came from those 9 experiments actually hold up in the real world?
To find out, the team ran 3 new experiments, V1, V2, and V3, with specific conditions to test the model. Using their data, the Taguchi model predicted what the final mass of the silicon should be after etching. And as you can see here, the predicted values were remarkably close to the actual measured results. This is fantastic confirmation that their model really worked.
And here is the proof in a picture. This is the result from that V2 validation experiment. It's a gorgeous, uniform, high-quality forest of silicon nanowires, exactly the kind of controlled, predictable outcome they were aiming for. They totally cracked the code.
So the crucial takeaway from this whole study is this. By using a smart, systematic approach like the Taguchi method, these researchers took a chaotic process with 4 competing variables, and they turned it into a predictable, controllable manufacturing technique. They didn't just make nanowires, they created a recipe book for making them perfectly every single time.
And this really brings us to a final, bigger thought. This work isn't just about silicon. It's a template for how to solve these incredibly complex, multivariable problems in material science and beyond. It really makes you wonder, if we can gain this level of control over matter at the nanoscale, what other seemingly impossible challenges in medicine or energy or computing are now suddenly within our grasp?